What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Counting Wisdom podcast. I wanted to make a helpful video on why you shouldn't get married. Now, I think that obviously marriage is not forbidden, especially from the Christian perspective, but I wanted to give some insight on reasons why I believe, especially in these last days, something to think about in regards to why you shouldn't get married. Now, I think one of the biggest things is being committed to one person for the rest of your life. I think that if you are not in the mindset of, hey, I'm going to be committed to one person for the rest of your life, then you should not get married. And I would actually change your strategy to being more sexually pure, controlling your emotions, controlling your sexual urges. Now, the Bible does say that, if you are sexually immoral or you're dealing with those types of temptations, then you should consider getting married. But I think, in my opinion, I kind of agree with Paul on how you shouldn't necessarily get married. And I would definitely go the route of trying to control your urges rather than getting married. Now, I think there are a number of reasons that I want to touch on this particular topic. Now, you have to be, if you decide to get married, you have to be okay with your spouse possibly doing something that you do not agree with. And I think that if you feel like you cannot handle those things, then you should definitely consider staying more on the single side and, having friends and, being involved in a community, especially when you talk about topics of adultery or cheating in some form or fashion. You have to be okay with those types of issues in regards to marriage. And I think that a lot of people don't necessarily think about that. When you are getting married, you assume that, hey, this person loves me and, hey, they're all good. But I think definitely there are different things that you do not know about a person, even if you may have, hung out with them for a lot of time. I would say if you are not able to deal with your spouse possibly cheating on you or some form of adultery, then do not get married. And I think that's something that you really have to contemplate in regards to marriage. Now, I think there are a number of other reasons why you shouldn't get married, just because Jesus said in the last days lawlessness will abound. And so if you are not okay with your spouse having some form of sin problem in their life and bringing you along with their journey or struggle, then I would recommend not getting married. Now, I know that you can possibly want kids and having kids of your own, but I would say that, pushing those desires aside, I think that, kids are great, but if you're not able to handle your kids' sin problems or your kids' struggles, or even, maybe a crying baby, kids want a lot of attention. If you're not able to handle, changing diapers, feeding the kids, making certain decisions, and just handling all the things that go along with having another person that you are responsible for, then I would highly consider not getting married. Now, I think that, if you are going to pursue some sort of sexual relationship, if you're going to continue to have sex, then a biblical way for you ahead is to get married. In the sight of God, you have no other choice. There is no gray area. If you are going to continue to try to have sex, then the only biblical way to do that is to get married. But if you do not want to embark on the journey of, trying to control yourself and, for the rest of your life, then, you should get married, but I think I just wanted to bring out some things that I don't think we discuss. And I think that, checking out 1 Corinthians chapter 7, I think marriage can be very stressful, and obviously this type of episode indicates, how I can be dealing with stress in my marriage. Now, I will say there are different times in marriage where you can feel happy or satisfied. I think that there are different problems that you can face in your marriage that God is looking for you to overcome. And God is looking for you to, build a strong relationship with Him in the center. But in my personal opinion, depending on who you are, obviously I don't know you, I do not think that you should get married even in these last days, just because, I don't think it is, completely worth everything that you, think about what a marriage should be. Now, obviously we have different hopes and dreams in this life, but I think at this point in time, not that I'm in the position to even forbid someone to get married, but I think in these last days, a lot of things are pretty far gone as far as, being able to have a normal way about marriage. And I don't know if there has ever been a great time, and so I think that, obviously, God is not forbidding marriage. Jesus said in the last days, people will be marrying all the way up until the time that He comes back and, comes to this earth. But I just wanted to give my own opinion just because, I struggled with the question of, should I get married? And, I have dated a few people, and I feel like the common thing that I think I can sort of conclude at this point in my life, even though I can say that, hey, I look forward to staying married and I look forward to, overcoming different challenges or problems that I'm having, and, having a successful marriage. But at the same time, I think recommend to people, along with Paul, I think this is one of Paul's recommendations in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. I think I would more push the side of do not get married, as you are, a Christian and following God and, pursuing righteousness and, pursuing God. I think that, in this day and age, I don't know if you are going to find someone that can really meet the hyper ideal person that you would want to be married to for 50, 60 years until you die. The whole saying of until death do you part, I don't know if that person exists. And especially when you talk about sin and different things like that, I think that, we don't necessarily understand the nature of sin, and we don't understand the extent of how sin is abounding in these last days. But I think that, obviously I don't know who your potential spouse could be. I don't know, all the people that are out there and, different things like that. And so I can't not, necessarily make certain statements about, who out there is, a good Christian or whatnot. But I know that, most likely, when you look at different stories that Jesus gave, he said that the last days will be like the days of Noah and like the days of Lot. And so when you look at those stories in the Bible, only 8 people out of all the people, even though we don't know a number, only 8 people were considered righteous or right before God. And, I personally think that some of Noah's family wasn't necessarily completely righteous, but they just got on the ark with Noah, is my own personal opinion. And so when you think about it, at least from the numbers standpoint, there were only a few people who were walking right with God in the last days, and everyone else was sinful or corrupt. And so when you think about trying to find a spouse that you can live in peace with and that you can, have a good, healthy, fun marriage, the numbers, I think, dwindle more and more, especially because more sins come out as you live with someone for years and years, days and days. You start to discover that this person is not fully what I thought they were like. Now, obviously, they can discover things about you too, and it's not necessarily to put your potential spouse out, above you or something, because we all have a sin problem. But I would say, even in these last days, which I think are becoming more and more apparent, at least to those who are watching, that we are in the last days. I think, one of the thoughts that I had was like, we're already, I believe, to the point where, everything is just becoming corrupt. And so, I think, I would highly recommend really pumping the brakes on, getting married in this day and age. Now, again, I think if you pray about it and God is leading you to get married, then you should go ahead and do it. And, just be aware of the potential problems that I think you have to be strong enough to deal with. And obviously, we are not necessarily strong enough on our own, but God can empower us to handle certain situations like, cheating, like adultery, like problems with your kids, like, not having peace in the home. These are all different issues and problems that I can pretty much, not even just from a biblical perspective, but I can pretty much guarantee one of those things are going to come up in your marriage. I feel like I can make sort of an educated guess that about 99% those things are going to be issues. And so I would say that if you are going to pursue getting married, then you need to work on how you are going to deal with these issues that are most likely going to come up. Are you going to choose to ignore some things? Are you going to choose to try to deal with the problem? Because you have to realize that you can possibly be married to someone that will refuse to not change. or they may take a very long time to change. And obviously, I think that God can help you with those things, but I think sometimes we in the Christian community don't necessarily talk about some of the warnings about marriage to the extent of, I think, at least making people aware of some of the real challenges in marriage. Now, I think that there are great parts about marriage. I think that, having someone that you can share your life with, having, someone you can raise kids with, having a friend, having, a companion, and then obviously, sex or, just sharing thoughts, fun, friendship type things. Those things are great, and I think that is the ideal of marriage, but at the same time, I think that if you are going to pursue marriage, you have to be aware of some of these things that can potentially, I think, cause you a harder time than if you were to remain single. Now, I think that if you are prepared to deal with some of the things that can involve marriage, I think that you have to think about, okay, what is your reaction going to possibly be like in certain situations that I would say you should already consider that they are going to come up in your marriage, instead of having a mindset of, oh, maybe this thing won't happen to my marriage. Now, I think that, of course, there's nothing that is necessarily telling us that we are guaranteed to have the same problems that maybe we heard from another person. But I would say you can highly, you can probably, give a probability of, wow, I could possibly have to deal with some of these things, just because I believe that it is one of those categories that God uses as a test in our life. And I just want to, concur with Paul, which I, sort of wrestled with myself. Now, I don't necessarily, fully think that, my marriage is, the worst in the world or something, or, completely regretting marriage in some way. No, because I think that there are highs and lows, and I think there are definitely highs where I can reach, where I can be like, hey, I'm so happy that I got married. But I think there are times where I have a different challenge where I can say, I feel like this problem that I'm having would not necessarily be in my life if I was not married. Now, I think obviously, I'm one that has kids. And so, I think it's great that, our marriage has produced kids. But, I think this kind of hits hard with me just because, I believe that 1 Corinthians chapter 7 is something that I kind of went over, a few times in reading, just to kind of understand what Paul was saying when he was talking about how, he didn't necessarily recommend someone getting married, even though he did make the statement that, someone, shouldn't forbid marriage. And that's what he said in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. But I also want to make the statement that I believe if you do get divorced, do not get married again. I think that, we are at the time point in this life that I think it's going to be very, very hard to find someone that is willing to, at least if you have the thought in your mind, hey, I'm going to stay committed to this person. Hey, I'm going to do the right thing in my marriage. You could find someone that has that same mindset, but you could find someone that you don't necessarily realize that they don't fully have that same mindset. And so I would say that, I can't fully say that, oh, do not get married completely, as if like I'm forbidding it or something, even though I don't necessarily see that as a sort of thing because I don't have the power over anyone. But I think, I do want to emphasize a little bit more about what Paul was saying in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, that I really think that you should go the strategy of, even if you have had sex already, I think you need to enter into the time of, stopping your sexual encounters with whoever it is, and, working on walking in sexual purity, walking in freedom. I think you would have a better life if you went the route of, okay, I'm going to try to overcome this, sexual urge or these sexual feelings that I'm having within me, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to get married and try to conquer these sexual feelings, on my own. And so I believe that, these are, what I think 1 Corinthians chapter 7 is saying, so check that out if you are interested in learning more about what the Bible has to say about this topic. But I think we can sort of underemphasize, the option of, not getting married. And I think that there is a big push in the Christian community to, hey, you should get married. And I know that a lot of people can sort of look down on someone who doesn't get married or doesn't have kids. But, from an insider's perspective, from someone who, I feel like I've read different Christian books, I've, heard different things from different married couples, I could say that, I think you need to do extensive research on this particular subject. And, I think that, just because you find someone that you are attracted to and a spouse, not many people sin in public, and that's one of the things that we have to realize is that when you go out in public, you rarely see anybody sin. You may see people cuss. You may see people, say a bad word here or there. But in general, you never see anyone sin. And so when you link that to what the Bible says about how sinful people are, clearly you can see a big gap between finding someone who you look at and see is attractive versus, is this person marriage, are you ready for marriage type of mentality? Because everybody that you're probably going to come across is more on the, hey, I'm just trying to have sex, and not necessarily about marriage, not about love, not about any of the other things that make up marriage. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that, hey, I'm the perfect person and I have not made mistakes here or there. But I would say for whoever clicked on this video to, maybe understand this perspective, I think that you are much better off not getting married. And I think if you're really, really keen on, overcoming some of the issues that I have mentioned, then, hey, you should go for it, But, I think that, in this point in time, especially in this world, when you realize that we are in the last days, then I would highly recommend not getting married and going the single route and just overcoming those problems that you could have being single. I think you have much better chance at, being more content and being more happy if you go that route. And, hey, I think it is great to have kids, and I think that, if you are really keen on doing that, then go ahead and do that. But you have to realize that 99 to 100% of the time, you are going to face these issues. And I feel like this is universal. If you look at different marriage material online, you will see that most of these people have dealt with these things. And so, again, I would highly recommend not getting married, but, do more research on this topic. Thanks so much for checking this out. Hopefully this was helpful to someone. Hopefully you got something from it. And I will talk to you on the next one. See ya.